And I'm going to segue to our next story. There might even be more people watching Formula 2 next season than Formula 1 in the United States.
Yeah, there might be some more folks watching more F2 than F1 in the United States because one of the big news, Formula One announced a new 5-year partnership with Apple TV to become the new home of the pinnacle of motorsports in the United States starting in 2026. With Apple TV becoming the new exclusive partner for F1 in America, it means the partnership with ESPN is coming to an end. During ESPN tenure showing F1 races with Sky Sports F1 broadcast, F1 has exploded with enormous growth stateside as more people have gotten into the sport. However, F1 is looking towards the future and decided to take a risk, switching to Apple TV streaming service. Kicking off the new partnership in style, F1 the movie will make its global streaming debut on Friday, December 12th on Apple TV. The new broadcast agreement will see Apple TV show all practice sessions, qualifying sessions, sprint races, and Grand Prix races. However, select races and all practice sessions will be available to watch for free in the Apple TV app. F1 TV will remain available in America through an Apple TV subscription only and will be free for those who subscribe. F1 CEO and President Stefano Domenicali said the new incredible excitement partnership between F1 and Apple TV can continue to maximize the growth and potential in America with the right content and innovative distribution channels. However, there are some who feel very concerned about the new deal with Apple TV, given how other sports haven't lived up to their potential on Apple TV. According to Andrew Marchard from The Athletic, F1 took the highest offer from Apple TV, which was $140 million per year, with ESPN only offering $90 million per year. They never moved to a higher bid. You mentioned the Apple TV with MLB and MLS. It was mentioned that neither Apple TV or those two sports leagues were willing to show the viewer numbers for their games, which also almost always means they weren't good. When you look at Nielsen's most recent statistic for streaming platforms, 8.7 belong to Netflix and Amazon Prime Video comes in at 3.9. Apple TV is listed in the other category at 0.35%. Despite these concerns, Machard is confident that Apple TV F1 broadcast will be produced in a high quality way, will be easy for the diehards to find, and the picture quality should be excellent. But he mentions how F1 can grow even more. There's no concrete evidence that Apple TV can help them find more people. Link to the article in the video description below, and the graphic is courtesy of Formula One. Now, Kobe, I'll throw this to you. Can F1's decision to move forward with Apple TV in the United States work out long term with F1 or ESPN showing Sky Sports on the F1 coverage about to become really a thing of the past stateside?
Yeah, first I want to say I'm disappointed that they're not sticking with ESPN because well, for me personally it worked out quite well because I use the ESPN app a lot and watch a lot of ESPN programming, and it was just easy because I watch NBA, college football, NFL stuff on through the ESPN app, so it just made sense for F1 to be on there as well, so I didn't have to pay for an extra subscription service. And now when they announced the Apple TV news, I was a little disappointed because I'm like, another streaming platform. I can't even think of all the different platforms I have to keep up, with all of my favorite shows outside of motorsports, and also some of the things I need, to be able to talk about some of the motorsport stuff. Like I got Amazon Prime Video, I got HBO Max. What else do I have? I have Peacock. And it looks like I might need Apple TV as well. I don't know how much that costs yet, so I guess I have to dive into that. But I'm sure a lot of people who have as many streaming platforms, to watch things as I do, I'm sure a lot of you are frustrated as well here in the United States. But So looking at some, I guess some of the positives of this deal, I think it's good that they're trying to, kick this off, in style, as Joe said, by showing, F1 the movie on Friday, December 12th. I'm probably one of the few people in the world who still have not seen F1 the movie, you just never got around to it. So I guess if I decide to get Apple TV, I'll finally be able to watch F1 the movie after all this time. So I think that's smart to try to, kick off the new partnership in that manner. And we were just talking about, being able to watch Formula 2 in that press release. I didn't see any mention of Formula 2, Formula 3. So I have no idea how we're going to watch those races to begin with. I would assume that F2 and F3 races will be available on Apple TV moving forward, but they haven't confirmed that yet. So hopefully we'll get that figured out. And also, I want to know what on the earth happened to this new app they were planning to launch in America. I remember they announced that they were going to announce and they were going to launch an F1 app specifically for America, where you'd be able to watch everything Formula 1, Formula 2, and Formula 3 all in one. But I guess this Apple TV deal ended up replacing that idea they once come up with. But yeah, some of the concerns they have about this, about the Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer as well, how people will admit the quality on Apple TV usually really good, but the fact is that it's not as in many households as what you mentioned, Joe, with Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. And if you're less than 1% of all streaming platforms with Apple TV, that's not a good sign at all. And as Andrew Marchand mentioned in his great article on The Athletic, usually when you have broadcast partners not telling you what the ratings were, it usually a telling sign, isn't it, that it wasn't really good. I remember when IndyCar had the TV deal with NBC Sports, I think they showed a Toronto IndyCar race on Peacock exclusively, but they never come out with the official numbers of that race. They just put out a statement saying that the numbers for this race, met the expectations that we had. And I think those expectations were that the broadcast numbers were, embarrassingly low, that they didn't want anybody to know what they were. And hopefully, for F1's sake, that people will migrate over to Apple TV and and subscribe and continue to follow the sport. But people like me who are really frustrated with all the different streaming services that we're going to need to be able to watch the things we love, incredibly frustrated. And I guess it depends on how much you love the sport. If you're a true diehard who really loves Formula One and still frustrated about needing another streaming service, I'm sure they'll eventually crack and decide to sign up. But if you're just like a casual person, who follows it, cause it's just on ESPN, which is more convenient for us here stateside, you may decide, what, it's not even worth trying to pay for, and then you completely fall out of the loop with the sport. I think it's quite a big risk that F1 is taking here, leaving ESPN, which is more accessible than Apple TV, to switch to a streaming platform, which hasn't really proved itself yet. I know Apple as a company is extremely successful, but in regards to streaming, live sporting events, we don't, as Andrew perfectly said in his article, there isn't really much evidence out there to support that, it's been a success so far. Maybe F1 can, help them get off the ground and become successful at this, but we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But all in all, really going to miss in Sky Sports F1 simulcast here in the United States on ESPN, whether it's ESPN, ESPN2, ABC. I've been really happy to see those broadcasts. Really going to miss them. And I think Apple TV, they can produce a quality broadcast based on their history. But the big problem is, are you going to get people to subscribe? Or are you going to get them to watch? And right now, I'm on the fence on whether or not I'm going to get Apple TV just for Formula One. But like Matt was saying, I would be more excited to watch Formula 2 and keep up with Colton Herta's progress right now than I would about F1 next season.
Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised, really, should we, by this, considering how much Apple were behind the movie. You kind of saw this coming to some degree. While you were chatting there, Kobe, did a little bit of a dive on the old Google machine and found an article on Forbes from 2018. Now, yeah, as Joe mentioned in the brief there, this is, let me just re-find it in the script in front of me, $140 million per year deal, which Apple is paying here to get Formula One on their platform from next season. NBC, who had the F1 rights in the States pre-2018, were paying $4 million a year. When that contract was not renewed by NBC, F1 had to find a broadcaster and it went to ESPN. How much did ESPN pay for this? Nothing. Zero. Nada. It was a free deal for ESPN so that Formula One had an outlet in the United States. What has happened since 2018, 2019? Strive to Divide has risen from the Netflix ether, and now we have 3 Grand Prix in the United States, 1.5 teams, I suppose you would call, with Cadillac and Haas. And now they're going to take that all away from the US supporting people and put it behind a huge paywall, which people do not want. And that is the problem with content at the moment, is everything's everywhere. I have Netflix, I have Disney, and I have Apple, only because I get it free with my bank. Otherwise, I wouldn't have it. Every time something new comes out, I go, oh, that looks cool. It's on Amazon Prime, and I don't have Amazon Prime, and I refuse to buy any more. So there's going to be a lot of that, I feel like, from you guys stateside, as Kobe mentioned. You can be paying out for yet another streaming service to watch something. That is a very small number. What's that? 0.35% of households in the States have it. That is nothing. Absolutely nothing. And there will be a lot of people that switch off. I don't think you will see the effect at Miami or at Las Vegas in terms of crowd, but the COTA crowd next season, that will be a bit eye-opening, because if you can't watch it, why would you go? So I think this is F1 loading the chambers of their gun, perhaps. They've not quite pulled the trigger on it yet, but this is a big deal in many ways for the American F1 audience. And if Colton Herta does succeed and go in F2 and goes to Formula One again over the next couple of years, who's going to be able to see him if people refuse to go down this route and get Apple TV? There was so much conjecture here in the UK back in whatever year it was that Sky took Formula One away from the BBC after it had flip-flopped between BBC and ITV, which is free to everybody on free-to-air, and Sky took it and put it behind a paywall. But the coverage has been just incredible ever since. And now Channel 4 have the rights here in the UK. They get to show the British Grand Prix live, but they have highlights of everything else, and it gets a good number. But if that's going to be an exclusive deal in the US on Apple, I worry. I really do worry for the 3 Grand Prix on the calendar, because we've seen what Formula One do with dates on the calendar where no one goes to watch. They disappear from the calendar quite quickly. So I worry for all of the American and the Americanness in Formula One that we have right now over the next 3 or 4 years. It might be very small by the time we get to 2030. It might be a very different outlook on American F1 stuff, let's say.
In the chat room, Crystal, it feels like most racing series don't seem to consider the actual distribution of the channels they are selling the rights to. I'm glad you brought this up, Crystal, because here's the thing. F1 Balloon, Drive to Survive, social media. Remember, it used to be hardly any team was on social media, hardly any driver. Oh. Now, every team, every driver, everybody's on social media. You brought up a good point, Matt. You connect to the teams. You connect to the drivers. Now people know the personality of midfield drivers like Esteban Ocon, who I have not heard much of this year, but if you watch Drive to Survive, you know his character. You know his personality. Yeah. Same with Lance Stroll and all these drivers. If you can't watch the race, and for some reason you decide I'm not renewing my Netflix, well, guess what? ESPN, which is the most basic cable platforms, gone. ESPN is introducing their own standalone apps. They got ways to stream. That's gone. And you look at what's happening to their competition. Yes, NASCAR has some races on Amazon Prime. Small amount, though. A lot of it, cable television, some broadcast. Then look at their other competition, which might land Mick Schumacher. Every race is on free broadcast Fox. we could complain all about Fox's coverage. That's a different topic, but
Yeah.
IndyCar's the only one that's going to have, hey, you got a TV, even if it has an antenna and an aluminum foil. If you could get the signal, you could watch IndyCar all the races. F1, well, no, you need to have an Apple TV subscription. And I think some people forgot, unless you're here in the West Coast, part of the reason the Pac-12 dissolved was because their best idea was we're going to have our Pac-12 on Apple TV. USC, Oregon, UCLA, they bailed to the Big Ten. The rest of this conference collapsed. I just do not see this being the step forward. I personally believe this is a cash grab that F1 just, they're taking the money. Apple can make these promises. Yeah, there's more iPhones than Androids. I get it. There's Apple Music. There's Apple this. There's Apple that. But when you look at the majority of Americans, when it comes to the streaming platforms, Netflix is a dominant force. Amazon Prime, especially you just sign up for Amazon Prime free shipping, you get Amazon Prime streaming for free. I wish I knew about your bank with a free Apple TV account by going there. I don't think we got any here in the United States. But I mean, there's so much competition. I just don't see the casual F1 fan that got into it and I'm going to watch it on ESPN. Do I want another subscription? Maybe, maybe not. I mean,
sorry, carry on, Joe.
I was just going to say, you could hear there's rumbling, there's rumors that Roman Grosjean could appear back in IndyCar again. That news breaks. You know, I can't watch F1. Maybe I'll check out IndyCar in St. Petersburg. Hey, that's a great race to watch.
Yeah, they'll watch Mick.
They could watch Mick Schumacher. I mean, we got talented drivers there. So, I mean, there's a lot of competition. I feel they are not making a smart move when it comes to the United States market. And I just feel this is just Apple can say what they want. Yes, globally, they're a recognizable brand. But I just don't see this going the way. If anything, I know from what Jeff Gluck had said on the teardown from the Athletic, NASCAR was probably celebrating the fact that where this past Sunday they were head-to-head with the United States Grand Prix. Next year, they're head-to-head. Well, guess what? Whoever has a TV, they can't find it unless it's an Apple TV F1.
Good evening to Mr. Owens, our sports media correspondent, who's just messaged me and said, darn, looks like I've just missed the sports media conversation this week. What I was going to say also was on the IndyCar point, Fox now on IndyCar have got to go, bang, we have to get these people that aren't going to go with Apple. I'm an Android guy. I've never had an Apple product in my life, and I don't use Apple Music. I use Spotify. I've got a Samsung phone. There are plenty of people in this world that are anti-Apple, and they won't go with Apple. You might be a massive Formula One fan, but you won't go with Apple. I was also thinking about, and you mentioned it in the rundown, the MLS. I feel like, and again, this is probably, you probably know a bit more about this than I do. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of noise around the MLS. It goes to Apple. Not heard a peep about it since.
Yeah. I mean, here in Portland, the Timbers, big following. And I remember hearing about before our move in 2019, we still, follow it, all this, but I'll be honest, like occasionally, if I'm somewhere where it's like in a hotel due to a work trip at the weekend or Sunday night at the pub, they might be rerunning the F1 race. Or it might be live depending on the time zone.
Yeah.
You never see soccer anymore because it's behind Apple TV paywall. You never see you're not going to see F1 at your local dive bar unless they specifically get an Apple TV subscription.
Yeah.
And
great point.
I sort of am getting a little tired of, I got to subscribe to this entire platform, but I only want to watch one thing. I got Peacock for NASCAR IMSA. I have not watched any of their other programs. IndyCar could be in a good spot, F1, unless they prove a lot of the experts wrong. We're talking people from the Athletic, people that follows media. If they could somehow convince their millions and millions of followers to subscribe to Apple TV, but even if they do, will they stick around? They could slowly drop off, especially if they miss a race. Oh, it's not on ESPN to re-air. But guess what's going to be on the air? It's IndyCar in a better time here in the United States.
Yeah, Joe. I thought you brought up some good points there, and especially what you said about the bar. Like when I've gone out like to eat and stuff, like if you ask them to, they'll usually like turn on the program like week one of the NFL season before. I think it was before the New Hampshire playoff race. I was out eating at a birthday celebration and wanted to watch the Carolina Panthers, and they were able to easily change to that. And if you wanted to see an F1 race, say in the United States on an afternoon, you could ask them, but hey, can you turn to ABC? And then they'll turn it on, and then you can be able to watch the race. But who's like, what are the odds they're gonna have Apple TV, right? Be like, I want to watch the F1 race at like say a breakfast location or whatever. They have TVs there. Yeah, since a lot of the races, well, most of the F1 races come on early in the morning here in the United States. So if they don't have Apple TV, you won't be able to put an F1 race up on the TV or anything like that. And then the continued frustrations, the cost of living, I don't know what it's like there for you guys in the UK, Matt. The cost of living here in the United States is off the charts now. It's continuing to go up. I actually just got 2 separate emails recently, one from, I think, HBO Max and also one from Peacock, and they announced they're raising the price of my subscription for next year on those 2 platforms. And as they continue to raise the prices, it makes me wonder. It's like, I really like watching, these certain programs. I like being able to keep up with this in motorsports. So as much as I love motorsports, I think these subscriptions are becoming way too much. It's just getting outrageous. These companies are greedy and they just want to take our money. And the point you brought up, Matt, about how at the time ESPN took the F1 coverage. F1 was not doing as well in the United States, and so they're like, hey, we just, like you're saying, we just want to stay in the air somewhere in the United States. So any station just take our series. And then ESPN done a remarkable job with this coverage of Formula One, and then all of a sudden, like, we thank you for your good deeds, now you must pay up. And now F1 wanted all their money at the forefront. ESPN, I guess they left a generous deal, but Apple TV offers them the most money, and I guess F1 feel like they needed to get their return on investment at the detriment of everyone else. I like I said, I hope this works out. I don't have much confidence as will, because I'm looking at reviews of Apple TV. They usually say that the coverage is good and all of that, but the thing is another subscription service that's not doing as well as Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, that type of stuff. And as you say, Joe, it's less than 1% of Apple TV that's been downloaded by people here stateside. So if you have less than 1%, compared to the other streaming platforms, is Formula One really going to be able to keep up the same number of viewership? And we're not going to be getting the F1 TV numbers anymore. But since Apple TV don't like to put those out for various reasons, as I brought up the Peacock example with IndyCar, when that race was behind the paywall, they wouldn't give you any specific number. They just said that it met our expectations, which would probably mean low viewership.
That just such a small number, just so small, just remarkably small. And what you won't get with this deal, to your mention, Kobe, and to perhaps Joe as well, in the bars, in the pubs, wherever, the people that will be sat at home on a Sunday afternoon, say in, I don't know, April, May, when there's no football on and there's no hockey on and there's no baseball on, that won't then casually tune into the Miami Grand Prix because they can't, because they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I love the casual fan, but you can't get no casual. You won't get no casual fans if you don't pay. Just for an extra 60 million a year, which they then won't get back because people won't subscribe. I just think it's bonkers.
Yeah. Don't expect them to be able to find a casual fan moving forward. And for me, everyone knows I'm a night owl. I'm not a morning person, so I actually miss most of the F1 races. I usually have to go back and watch, the highlights package, or if the race is really good, I will sit back and watch the entire race before the NASCAR race comes on. So So I don't. That's why I'm on the fence about getting Apple TV. I mean, I don't want to miss out on Colton Herta in Formula 2, seeing how he gets along. I don't want to miss out, on F1, especially during the first year of the new regulations and also Cadillac. That's a big deal as well for us here in America. I don't want to miss out on Cadillac either, but I'm not sure if I can justify paying for Apple TV, considering the fact I only watch the races in Australia, Asia. On that side of the world at the beginning of the year, then obviously the one stateside and at the back end of the season, but usually most of the European rounds, I end up missing all of those, in the middle of the season live. So I'm not sure if Apple TV would be worth the investment for someone like me.
And two things I want to bring up too in regards to this. Recently, Phillips Island, of course, MotoGP, the time zone difference. I was at the pub and I was able to, as you said, hey, can you put on it was I believe Fox Sports where they had MotoGP.
Yeah.
People that never seen it. Oh, hey, motorcycle racing. They see some of the action. I'm convinced none of my colleagues there are gonna remember MotoGP, but that's just some eyeballs.
Yeah.
The fact that ESPN, the world leader in sports, and especially in the United States, owned by Disney, biggest multimedia company here. People will watch ESPN for football, hockey. There's some baseball coverage, but we know they got rid of most of their games.
Yeah, and basketball,
the college sports, Sports Center. When the NASCAR used to be there, they'll be on Sports Center. They'll be RPM Tonight. There'll be these programs. They do the same thing with F1 now. Sports Center, there's the F1 story. There will be ads for the Miami Grand Prix, the Las Vegas Grand Prix. That's all going to go away next year. ESPN's not going to bring up F1, which is, by the way, on Apple TV. They're not going to. You're not going to have your big Thursday night college football game, and here's a friendly reminder on ESPN: watch F1. Nope, that's gone. They're going to remind you of whatever random sport they're going to have, pro bowling or something. So it's going to be a big change. It might be a wake-up call, and I'm hoping they don't make the same mistakes of all these changes. You lose the casual fan, and the diehard fans are sort of tuned out because they might be watching something else like IndyCar. So a lot just followed with this story for the next 5 years.